This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
The biggest icon in podcasting.
Welcome, everyone, to the latest edition of Doc and Jock on the Detroit Sports Podcast Network. I am the Doc, John Macaroon. Joining me, my guy, as always, Adam, the Jock Strozinski. Today's show is packed. Slam, big week. The Detroit Tigers are continuing their winning ways. We got to look at the future. We got to look at Tigers GM Jeff Greenberg and Scott Harris have been talking. It's now time to kind of surmise and kind of look at, are they willing to trade anybody for some proven vets? Is anyone untouchable in the minor leagues? Lots of interesting ways to kind of look at what the Tigers are saying. Conservative but pragmatic is kind of a fair way to look at it. You look at it and you say the Detroit Tigers are one of the teams that is gaining confidence and momentum, but we're going to look at Detroit sports, and are the Tigers now legit World Series contenders? Have they changed Adam's mind to the point where he thinks they can beat the Dodgers or the Big Spenders or the team in their own division in the Guardians? We'll explore it. Looking at the Lions, some news and nuggets. Amon-Ra St. Brown revealed something that was interesting. Some rumors, lots of fresh rumors regarding the Lions roster, a defensive end. One that's also funny, too, that I saw people were talking about, was going to give everyone an inside glimpse at reporting and how something like this makes its way through the internet. It's funny because I've started some stuff like this, but it's an interesting discussion. It's not really a rumor, but it's very, very telling on how information nowadays gets disseminated across the internet. And then we'll finish off with craziness with the Pistons. Could they add a 36, 37-year-old scorer, but often injured? Looks like a Brad Holmes special type of player. We'll talk about the Pistons and what wild takes have been coming out because it's rumor season. But what's not a rumor? The Tigers are inching their way closer to more and more people believing that they may be the team that gives everybody more hope that they could advance really far in the playoffs and do some things. You look at the Lions, Pistons, Wings, the collegiate landscape, things are interesting across the board. Things are trending upward. It's been a lot more fun to do the podcast over the last couple weeks, looking at the Tigers and their growth, and they just keep winning series after series, winning against the Cubs. That series was excellent. Even though the Cubs were able to win the second game, they, relatively speaking, held the high-powered Cubs offense in check, highlighted by Flaherty's performance there on Sunday. So that was nice as they continue their winning ways. So if you look at it, just with the Detroit Tigers, have they started to sway your confidence a little bit? Are they legit World Series contenders? Do they give you hope that maybe sooner rather than later they could bring it home, give everybody a reason to celebrate, a parade in Detroit? I know it's unheard of for this generation, but actually when you win a championship, they have this thing called a championship parade down Woodward. It's really fun, but it's been a damn long time since any team in Detroit has even been close to sniffing it.
When was the last time? Was it 2004 with the Pistons? Was that the last time we've had a parade downtown?
My goodness.
I think so. I think so. Oh, no, wait. Right? Was it maybe the Red Wings? I think it was Pistons, right? No, maybe it was 2008 Red Wings.
No, last championship one was 2004. Detroit Pistons.
2004. All right, there you go. So yeah, man, it's been so damn long. We're trying to do math right now on the podcast, trying to figure it out. That's how long it's been. But I think the basis of your question, when you look at it and you look at the landscape in Metro Detroit, and you add in college, right? You add in MSU basketball, MSU football, U of M basketball. I really think it comes down to two teams. I think it comes down to the Lions and Tigers. As nice as the Pistons have been as far as the story goes, I don't quite think they're there. And we're going to talk a little bit about how they could possibly get there a little bit later on in the podcast. But I don't think they're there. I don't think they're sniffing a championship yet. Red Wings are a million miles away from that.
Actually wrong. The last cup was the Wings, and the Shock get credit for a title in 2008 when the Wings beat the Pittsburgh
2008 Red Wings.
2008.
Okay, yep. All right, so 2008. Still, forever. It's been forever and a day since we've had one. But speaking of the Wings, I feel like they are forever and a day away. Like, I don't know what's going on with Steve Yzerman. I don't understand what he's trying to do as a general manager. I'm not sure what I'm seeing there. You know, the whole prophecy of Ken Holland in 10 years seems to be coming to fruition, seems to be taking forever for the winged wheel to get back on track. You look at MSU basketball. I feel like MSU basketball is going to always be good, right? You've got Tom Izzo there. I don't think he's going anywhere ever. I feel like he's going to die on the court, probably screaming at a referee or yelling at a player. But I feel like with him there, you're always going to be good, but I don't know if you're going to be the best for that season. I felt like this past year was probably the best opportunity MSU has had, especially with NIL and everything going on with that, to obtain that championship, to get his second one, and they fell short again. MSU football, let's be honest, there's a lot that's got to get worked out. You guys have a new athletic director there. Hopefully that can kind of level a little bit of the playing field, and U of M or MSU football can get back on track. U of M football, right now we're staring at sanctions. You might not have a national championship in your award trophy case there coming up very soon. You might not be able to compete in a playoff if you're able to get to one. Who the hell knows what's going on with football and U of M right now? Not really sure. I know Steve was very outspoken on Twitter, listening to one of our old podcasts and trying to take me to task on a couple of things. Steve, I love you. U of M football's in a bit of a mess right now. Not really sure. The NCAA wants to absolutely hammer them. And U of M basketball, I feel like it's on the right trajectory, but I don't know if they'll ever get to that championship point. I feel like they will be a good team. Might be something like MSU basketball, where you're a good team for a long time, but I don't know if you have that magical season or that magical run where you win the championship. So, like I said, it boils it down to Lions and Tigers. And I feel like the Tigers, incredibly young team. I feel like they are headed in the right direction. I don't know the last time we could say that they had the best record in all of Major League Baseball, and it's really not close. I think closest teams maybe 5 or 6 games behind them. So they've got a bit of a wide berth here, and it's been a lot of fun to watch. You have the best pitcher in baseball in Tarek Skubal, who we're going to talk about here in a little bit. You're getting timely hitting from a lot of young guys. You've got a couple of veterans who seem to have figured things out, with Gleyber Torres, that was a guy who I was not very high on when they signed in the offseason, as well as Javi Baez, kind of working through a lot of those growing pains from the last couple of years and seems to have part of the ship righted there. But I think when you break it all down, the Detroit Lions probably give you your best opportunity at winning a championship. Yes, I understand the Tigers. Anything can happen in a 7-game series. Anything. I just feel like the Lions have more experience playing at that type of level. I feel like the Lions have more high-quality players all over their roster, whereas I feel like the Tigers, I don't want to say it's smoke and mirrors because what they're doing is pretty magical. I feel like you've got one stud in Tarek Skubal, and then you've got a lot of guys who are good to pretty good. Whereas I feel like the Lions, you've got top 5 quality guys across the NFL in roster spots that are incredibly important and impact winning more. You just look at the Lions offense, they have an elite offense. You look at their defense, they have arguably the best safety duel in the NFL. Linebacking core, I feel like they've got an underrated linebacker in Alex Anzalone, and Jack Campbell might be the guy who is stepping up and maybe a little bit underrated himself. You look at the edge position on this team, obviously held down by Aiden Hutchinson, who is one of the best, arguably a top 5 edge in this league. And then when Aleem McNeil comes back, that guy is a top 3, if you want to call him nose tackle, inside tackle on the defensive line, whatever you want to refer to him as. You've got great players all across that roster. And I think I'm going to go out on a limb here. I'm going to say Dan Campbell has championship pedigree. I'm not going to say Dan Campbell obviously has won a championship, but he has championship pedigree. You look at what he's done with this team. You look at how he's coached this team. You look at what he's built. I feel like he is built for that driver's seat to win a championship. I feel like it's in his blood. He understands what it takes. And the best part is his players relate to him. AJ Hinch obviously has won a championship. We use finger quotes for it. Whatever happened in Houston. But I feel like it's just still a young team, and I don't know if they have the depth of talent. I think the Lions are still the team that gives you your best opportunity to win that championship, to have that parade right now. What do you think? Is it the Lions? Is it the Tigers? Or are you going a little bit off the board? You going MSU basketball or football? Maybe U of M football or basketball? Maybe the Red Wings you see kind of kicking it into overdrive here, or maybe it is the Pistons. Maybe they make a big move this offseason and you're like, nope, I believe in the Pistons. I believe in what Trajan Langdon's building. It's those guys. Who do you see as giving the Metro Detroit area its first championship since 2008?
Yeah, when you look at it, arguably AJ Hinch is regarded as one of the top 1, 2, 3 managers in the entire sport. Dan Campbell's up there too, but there's so many factors in a sport like football that make it difficult because in the end, you look at it and you say, you need a kind of star, Hall of Fame quarterback, mobile, athletic, really smart. Right now it's the Josh Allen, it's the era of these great quarterbacks like Patrick Mahomes. Many people think Jaden Daniels is next. And so that's why everybody's chasing it. That's why I have a hard time thinking it's the Lions because first and foremost, like I've always said, Jared Goff's great. He's a good quarterback, getting better, solid. But in crunch time, do I think he's going to rise to the occasion, or could he have 1 or 2 more games like he did against the Commanders where he gets rocked and then he looks silly? He looks like, throws are off, the offense is off, it struggles a little bit, and you need so many complementary pieces as well. It's not all on Jared Goff. It's a team game. And you have one bad injury like the Amik Robertson situation happened. Imagine Terry Arnold goes down in the first round of the playoffs. It's so tough. Baseball, you could argue this team could add a pitcher or two, and they're right up there. They have the reason why I went over in my early predictions and told everybody bet 7 units. I said hammer the over in an interview. I said hammer the over. 7 units on the over win total because I said the reasons were AJ Hinch is amazing at getting the best out of his roster, and the pitching staff looks great. When you got Skubal, it's hard to discount. And if you can add to that, if you can get that right-handed bat, if you can add to this team, and we'll talk about that in just a moment here, they got a chance. And that's a team that could get hot at the right time, hitting gills. We've seen it quite a bit of time. So I think the Tigers are the closest, but both are still far away. Lions need a little bit more work. They need basically just the development, maybe 1 more year of a lot of guys to get to that level, and they got to add a couple more stars. Just one. I think both teams are, a lot of teams, I think at least now in this era of Detroit sports, outside of the Red Wings, the top 3 are just like two more impactful guys away each from making big strides, and that's a good sign. I talked to Joe Johnson downtown, and he said, look, you add a vet or two, they could take the next step. And that's why, that Tyrese Halliburton, misstep really is costly. But I do think that Trajan Langdon knows what he can do to add to this team and to develop this roster. So to me, it's Tigers and Lions, real close, but Tigers are closer because you have arguably the best manager, and quite frankly, you now see it appearance by appearance by appearance. I don't care if he doesn't go deep in games. Tariq Skubal is the best pitcher in Major League Baseball. So that gives you a lot of confidence. But because from hearing what you've heard from Jeff Greenberg on the radio, on Sirius Internet Radio, and then hearing Scott Harris and what he's kind of talked about, the sense is that, again, it's kind of like that. We need to make sure that any move we make is a culture fit. Make sure the locker room chemistry doesn't get upset. We don't want to upset the pH balance of the clubhouse. But I did like that Scott Harris was just like, there's nobody untouchable in the minors. We're willing to deal anybody. But it to me, what I read into what they were saying is it's going to be conservative. I don't think we're going to get Paul Skeens on the roster like everybody's saying, but I could see a bat. I could see a player on an expiring deal that's reasonable to add to this team. But it didn't send me into running into a wall, but it's at least acknowledging, we're probably in the position to add this year, which is good.
Yeah, so like you said, what I took out of it is they said that they're aggressively going to look to add and fill roster spots that they deem are holes on this team. It's what I like to hear. When it comes to Tarek Skubal, though, I don't see them getting a deal done with him. I think Tarek Skubal is going to play out the rest of his contract here, and then he is gone. Listening to what I heard from Jeff Greenberg, on MLB Network Radio on Sirius, and then listening to what I heard from Scott Harris on 97.1 when he joined Jim Costa in Jansen. I don't believe that they believe that they can get a deal done. I think it was on Friday afternoon. I was driving around, flipping through stations, and there was some conversation about Tarek Skubal and possibly what they're asking for. And it sounds like they're asking for up to $400 million in his contract. I don't see the Tigers coming to the table with that amount of money. I don't see, to be honest with you, I don't see a lot of teams coming to the table with that kind of money. It kind of boils down to the Yankees and the Dodgers when you really break it down. Maybe Boston gets in the mix, but that's a ton of cash. And I don't think Chris Ilitch, Mr. Little Caesar himself, is going to be shelling out the hot and readies to get Tarek Skubal to sign a deal like that. And to me, it seems as though, just kind of reading between the lines, between what Greenberg said and what Harris said, it seems like the gap is almost canyonous between these two parties. It doesn't seem like the Detroit Tigers can build a bridge long enough to span that chasm, to be able to bring these two close together. And to me, it just kind of feels like Tarek Skubal is going to kind of ride out his time here, which leads to a bit of an interesting situation because you do have arguably the best pitcher in Major League Baseball right now. I know a couple weeks ago we comped him to Justin Verlander in his prime. I comped him to Max Scherzer in his prime. And both those guys got massive deals. One from the Tigers, one from Washington, and they end up going on to sign additional deals later on. But we both believe this guy is an elite pitcher. This is a guy who has shown the ability to take a team and put it on its back and win you high leverage games in the playoffs. And it just feels as though the Detroit Tigers and Tarek Skubal just can't get on the same wavelength. So what do you do? How do you play this situation out? Because Skubal is, I believe, arbitration eligible next year. And then I think after that, he might have one more arbitration year left. I think you've got him at least for the next 2 years. So look, you're going to let him play out the rest of 2025. Hopefully you win a World Series. I don't know if it happens. Like I said, I believe the Lions are closer than the Tigers. I think the Tigers are a World Series contending team. I don't know if they actually win the World Series, though. There's a couple things that have to go right for them. I think the following year, you go to arbitration, you let arbitration play out, you pay him whatever the arbitrator says you got to pay him, and then you've got a decision to make. Do you trade him that year, or do you end up letting him go and possibly you end up letting him run out his time in Detroit and he ends up going off into the sunset and you're left with nothing, almost like Shohei Ohtani did to the Angels. How would you play this situation out? I know that we've talked about this and you don't believe that they should pay him what he's asking. I'm on the opposite side of, look, I know he's had Tommy John. I know he's a little bit older, but this is a guy who has showed you he has the ability to weather the storm and carry this team. How would you play this out? Would you just let him ride off into the sunset and get nothing? Or are you trading him in that final year of his arbitration contract?
Yeah, it's a tough one, right? But here's the thing. I love his talent. I think he's the best player in baseball, but could you get $400 million of value out of him? Probably not.
I don't know.
So that's a big number. If that's what he's commanding, look, here's the blessing. You got a 2-year window, this year or next. Ride it out. You're not forced to do anything. You don't have to pay him. You got him under team control. Now, could you set forth the path next year to the organization becoming great winners? Probably. You may end up making the best deal in the history of Major League Baseball next year by unloading them for 4, 5, 6 prospects, and maybe the key caveat being a key starter that is going to be solid. But in the end, I do think it should push and force Scott Harris and Greenberg to kind of add some talent. You're close. I think you're one pitcher, one reliever, one hitter away. Find some impact. Find some guys that you believe are out there, whether it be a Bichette, whether you believe it's a pitcher, whether you believe you got to go find somebody off the scrap heap. Find somebody that you feel is talented. Maybe it's finding an old friend. Eugenio Suarez is out there doing nothing in Arizona but swinging and hitting home runs or striking out. Maybe you take a chance on him as a third baseman. Maybe if it's not this year, I think he's a free agent, and you can get him next year. You have an opportunity, but I do think because $400 million is a lot, and that would indicate if you pay a guy $400 million, there's not that many out there, and the couple that have gotten those kind of dollars have been missing time with injury. If you pay Skubal $400 million, you're almost needing two rings to kind of make it worthwhile to recoup some of that money. It almost feels like you might get 2 valuable years out of it. You might get 25% value, $100 million value with 2 years of service. By the time he hits 30, maybe something happens and it's a bad deal. You're risking arm injury. It's just you're taking a chunk of 50% probably of that contract being wasted. And I just don't think the Tigers are in that market. I do think that you take advantage of them, you trade them next year, and you ride it out this year, and you figure out a way to get 5-6 players in a blockbuster deal. But I don't know. I don't know if the Tigers feel like that's going to happen. I do think that Scuba's got to bring that price down. If you can get them in the neighborhood of, okay, fine, you want big dollars, let's do a short-term deal. Let's do 3 years, $150 million. Let's make a lot of it front-loaded early. Let's do one of those deals where you don't get like $10 million a year for the next 20 years, like some contracts have been worked out. I don't want just short-term. Let us out by the time you're 31, and if you go bust next year, we only got to pay you for 1 more year as opposed to 9 years. You know what I mean? If he wants 10 years, $400 million, that's tough, bro. That's tough. Nowadays to give 6, 7, 8, 9 years to guys, especially with that. So I'm okay if they make the decision. I'm okay with it. Like, I'm cheap and I get it. I've seen what he can do I've seen what he can do, but I also believe that you can develop pitchers to get to that level. That's why you picked Job. That's why you picked others as well to kind of be in that range. That's why you got to develop more pitchers. That's why you have a coaching staff. But there's only one, Tariq Skubal, and he's a bulldog. And he's, with each appearance, is making the decision that much more of a nightmare for everybody to look at. And it's a tough call, but I'm not attached because $400 million, cause you know what that means? That means when me, you, and the nephew want to go out, that ticket will be $105. Okay, am I sitting in the front row? No, you're sitting in row 45. 45. That means $17 beers. That means in essence, cause I don't want to pay $400 million for Tariq Skubal because you really think that Chris Ilitch is going to pay $400 million? He's going to pass that shit off to you and me. And I don't want to pay $118 for the 45th row in the back of Comerica Park's lower bowl. You know what I mean?
For
What I
sure.
mean? So
and here's the thing. Next year, he's arbitration eligible. He'll be 29. The year after that, he'll be the unrestricted free agent, and he'll be 30. So, I could see the Tigers pushing this another year, going to arbitration, or maybe they work out a deal where they avoid arbitration. But then he's 30 years old. This is a guy who's had Tommy John. This is a guy who the other day they're keeping him on a pitch count at 90 pitches when he was rocking and rolling, and it's to help preserve that arm. You might be more right than you are wrong. $400 million is a ton of money, right? And if you're 30 years old, you've already had Tommy John, so you've already had arm injuries. Anytime you get close to 100 pitches, they get a little bit nervous. Is the value really there? I don't know. I think he is an important part of this team. I probably would have signed him 2 years ago, or maybe a year ago. I would have signed him, locked it up, and called it good.
Bro, for $100 million, you can get 3-4 good players making $25 million.
Yes.
You can get 4 good players right now.
Correct.
For 2 years. I'm down. Put 50 to 100 million into this team right now. They have a chance at least to get to the World Series, some playoff gates. So,
and if you look at what he does give you, I feel like I just talked myself out of where I've stood for the last couple
money. Keep our money in our pockets.
I feel like if you look at what he's commanding and what, if the rumors are true, if what he's commanding, you can go out there and get a guy who's going to give you the same production. And here's the thing. He's a once every 5-day player. It's not like he's an everyday player. We knew the deal when Miguel Cabrera signed that contract. We knew it was going to hurt on the back end, and it sucked on the back end. But the thing was, at the time, Miguel Cabrera played 5 out of every 7 days. Miguel Cabrera played 6 out of every 7 days. They would give him a day of rest here and there. and the guy was coming off a Triple Crown year, something that we hadn't seen in forever. And the guy was able to go out there and hit home runs and drive runs in and get guys home. And he was an attraction. He was an everyday attraction. Tarek Skubal can't go out there and do that every day. He does it every 5 days. So that's a lot of money to sink into what I'm going to deem as a part-time player.
Ooh, part-time. Yeah. It's a tough decision. And the Tigers are in that delicate balance where they're so close you can taste it that you could be in a situation in which you make that investment, but there's risk. There's risk involved. The whole fan base would be behind it. They don't care. It's a team that if they win, they believe that Skubal could give them 3-4 years of solid pitching. So we'll see. We'll see how it plays out. But it's good that this staff, the manager, the coaching staff, and this roster of players is putting the ownership in a tough spot because they got to force them to make a decision, and a tough one, whether to invest in this team and add talent. And I'm curious to see who's going to be included in a trade if it happens for a veteran. What kind of veteran do they bring in? Is it a pitcher, reliever? Is it a bat? Is it finally a third baseman? Is it somebody that can help out defensively? So we'll see. But this Tigers team, stock way up, doing great things. Now they're in Baltimore, going to whoop their ass this series. Great win to start. The pitching staff is just coming up spades in so many different ways. The offense is just great, doing great things. So prideful time for the Detroit Tigers. Now, turning our attention to the Lions, it was kind of a light OTA session. It kind of was disappointing, as I said, a couple different times, man. To have us go out there for the last day of OTAs twice, I get it. It was like the last day of school, and it was like a half day, and everybody was just walking around. I was like, oh, man, you have us out here. You could at least, the second week, let us watch some football. But I get it. It's less work. You still got to see at least who was out there. But the big thing that I would say I took out of OTAs is, you got a problem now along the offensive line, is that you got to hurry up and you got to now hope that Tate Ratledge develops quickly because he's in there. It's going to be him. And in talking to everybody, they say within a week or two, given the quick nature of the league, I would say that you're going to start training camp with Graham Glasgow as the center. Something I learned that I didn't know is that TJ Lang, when I went downtown, he said that, the center doesn't always have to make the calls. Like, they can make Penei Sewell shout out some things and make some calls. I was like, oh, that's interesting. Maybe Taylor Decker makes some calls. I thought that was interesting in that they could spread out the responsibility of the center to different linemen. So he thinks that, Tate Ratledge will develop, will get after it, but that maybe the fail-safe to be conservative at first is the option to have Graham Glasgow be the guy. So that's fine. I get it. It was a bombshell that was dropped. But some other news and nuggets, we got a little bit of a health update. Amik Robertson's close to come back. It was a little bit revealing that Amon-Ra St. Brown had offseason work because can you blame, is it really all that surprising? These guys work out. They're workout warriors. They're running at full speed. They're getting tackled. And so what he said was cleanup procedure, which means just a little bit of a shaving, just a little bit of a clean up a little bit of discomfort that can go on. It's minor. It happens all the time, probably more than even some athletes would reveal. But when he wasn't there to start, people recognize it. But it won't be any problem. I'm not when they say it, they seem so confident. When they talk to the media, it just feels like, okay, everything's great. But that's their job, is to downplay everything. But were you a little bit surprised that Amon-Ra, because he is a little bit of a smaller guy, his frame is not as he is taking a lot of hits because of his yards after the catch. He is a slot merchant in that. Not that when we say it, it doesn't mean that that's all he can do is run in the slot. It means that a lot of his catches are within 5 yards, which means a lot of linebackers are going to be there. A lot of bodies are going to be there to tackle him. So he's taking a lot of hits. I'm not concerned, but it was one thing that was revealing. What did you take away from what you read about and what you heard maybe outside of even the offensive line?
Dude, I was shocked. I was
Really?
like, how did all this kind of just get missed, right? Like, how did we not know St. Brown was having knee surgery? So that blew my mind, right? Like that kind of came out of left field to me. And I was like, okay, instantly you hear this and you're like, panic. Is he going to be okay? What are we thinking? What are we talking about? And then he just kind of drops the very casual line, just had to clean up a few things. I'll be okay. So like my concern is now, and I don't know how much you watch anything on different sports injuries. I tend to watch a lot of things. I end up going down the rabbit hole on YouTube. I end up reading a lot of different reports. It's always very interesting to me how these guys are able to recover and what the expectation is when they come back. So to go in there and clean up a few things, depending on what was cleaned up, this could have ramifications going on down the line, right? So like when they go in there and they quote unquote clean up your meniscus, they're usually cutting away parts of your meniscus. And your meniscus is incredibly important for your knee because it helps cushion the blow of you running, you cutting. It helps, it kind of just acts as a bit of a buffer so you're not bone on bone. And the moment they start kind of tearing away at some of that meniscus, they start cleaning some of that up and they start shaving down some of that bone. When you start working on the bone, usually arthritis begins to set in with the meniscus. It usually leads to achy and sore joints in the knee. So hearing that, yes, man, I am very concerned because this is a guy that you just gave a ton of money to. And now all of a sudden there's a report coming out that he's having knee surgery done. And usually when you start going in there and you start working on stuff yes, guys can bounce back, but generally it's a slow bleed is what I'm getting at. And so, yes, I am nervous. Now, like, look, it could be very minor, could not be anything, but this is something that now I'm going to pay attention to. When he gets hit low, I'm going to be incredibly nervous about. And if you hear him being held out of practice or you hear them giving him rest days, my thought is like, okay, is it an achy knee? Because like I said, man, you shave bone down in a joint, usually arthritis starts to set in because the bone wants to regenerate, the bone wants to regrow. When you start shaving down parts of a meniscus, again, you're taking away parts of cushioning that was there to help soften blows. You now have bone kind of rubbing on itself. So it all has a trickle-down effect. It's not one of those things they just go in and it's 100%. These dudes are imagine a Shelby Cobra, right? And all of a sudden it's got a bit of an engine knock. Well, you can go in there, you can kind of mess with it a little bit, but you're taking stuff out and you're not able to necessarily put stuff back in. So yes, this is a concern for me. I was shocked and I was blown away, and I was surprised that we didn't hear anything sooner. That was kind of what rattled my cage. It was all kept so hush hush. So I'm going to be watching him and obviously minicamp is going to be shuffled around because of everything they got going on with the Hall of Fame game. But come Hall of Fame game, and when you get back out there, I'm going to be hitting your phone up like, hey, man, what are you seeing? How's he look? How's everything going? Because this has me nervous. Were you shocked that this was kept as quiet as it was kept? And were you shocked by his just pretty nonchalant attitude about all of it?
No, I look at it like, things are private for very certain people, and you always want to make sure that the player feels comfortable with information released medically. So a lot of times, Amon-Ra St. Brown is private with regards to health matters and things like that. So those things, because it happens in the offseason. So people aren't dialed in. You're not blowing up the agent's phone asking for updates. When you start realizing something's up is when football resumes, because this is the offseason. And remember, the caveat is up until actually, for the Lions, this whole offseason, there is no mandatory minicamp. There was no mandatory work for the Lions because they are starting early, so there's no mandatory minicamp. The rest of the league is enjoying mandatory work with the team, and the Lions didn't do that. So for Amon-Ra, it's all voluntary. So when he wasn't there, it's like, okay, da-da-da-da. And the second week, then you start to realize, okay, he revealed what was going on. So I don't think he would have revealed the nature of the injury and the surgery had it not gone okay. But you're right. Absolutely. Every procedure will take a toll. But I do think that nowadays, because the treatment is such an advanced level, regeneration, the way in which players can extend their careers, the way in which players can work with trainers to make sure that they're okay, it can extend his career. But you're right. The dollars that are allocated to him makes it so that you got to pay attention to his health. And especially with the physical nature, the Lions are physical. So that means, what does that mean? The byproduct of that is other teams want to destroy you as well, just as equally. So you're absolutely right. It's always a concern with these athletes, but Amon-Ra has a lot of time between now. He's got 6 weeks to continue to heal up, and we did see him work out a little bit on the side. And like I said, hopefully, and you're right, athletes, all they do is downplay everything. Everything's going to be great. I'll be back. I'll be back better than ever. And we just got to wait to see, like you said, throughout the year, how does that look? And now, as a result of the offseason and now the 6-week break, what season are we in, cuz? Now we're in rumor season. And this is the fun season because all of them I was ready for the mindset for me is, all right, let's go. This week I want to relax. I want to talk about the Tigers with Adam. I want to kind of downplay the Lions. And then boom, Monday, Tuesday hit and it's Jair Alexander's released. A Bengals linebacker is released. Zadarius Smith is enjoying cash doll and the Hollywood lifestyle out there at the BET Awards. And he's talking to fans saying, soon, I'm coming back. And everyone's like, oh my God, it truly never ends. And I thought that because the news was a little bit slower the last couple of weeks, the offseason hit and there's more news. I'm like, what the? All right, more news, more discussion. So I get it. But now here's what happens. Now people start doing their offseason content plans. And here's what's funny is that this one got floated all the way to my guy's sheet here. And when you put it on here, I did. I'm not laughing at you. I respect the idea here. But it's so funny that Shedeur Sanders, being rumored to be a trade target for the Lions, got out there. And here's what happens, okay? And Adam does it. I do it. That's what we do. It's how you find ideas. And Lions NSI does it. Detroit Sports Podcast does it. Literally everybody does it. But I just want to, for Steve Chimenti, all the listeners and readers, here's how you read it, okay? So I went to one of the origins of someone who wrote this, all right? And one of the people who wrote it, competitor, Sporting News, they're into the market and they want to put out content. So they wrote it, okay? And so they went and they found, so if you Google Shedeur Sanders, Lions in the Sporting News, okay? The headline says, proposed trade. Okay, now if you read it, the second paragraph says it. Heavy Sports' Ann Erickson recently floated the idea of Sanders to the Lions in a bold mock trade. In her quote, I know this sounds wild, but hear me out. So here's what happened, okay? And I've started it. I've been the target of someone taking my work and spreading it and saying this. But this is not a rumor. This is not proposed to happen. What happens is we're responsible for putting out content at a certain level when you work for a sports website. And they want, content. They want people looking at you and talking and stuff. So this lady at Heavy, who takes a lot of my stuff and amplifies it and puts wild headlines, which is funny.
Yeah, they do ridiculous stuff. Yeah, it's a lot of content farming and stealing other people's stuff.
People message me on it. Oh my God, Heavy is crazy. There's some wild ones. But what she did was she threw it out there and she said, I got a bold idea. The Browns should trade Shedeur Sanders to the Lions. And then someone reads it and then they aggregate it and they write it. And then it starts to float on Google. People see it because that's what people do. You type in Detroit Lions, stuff pops up, and then every site writes it. And then people at big radio stations go, why is everybody talking about this? Well, what happens is that everybody needs content. Everybody needs their hamburger. Everybody needs their French fry. And Adam needs a topic, and he wants to talk about something cool. Well, he wants to talk about Shedeur Sanders. It makes no sense.
Well, here's the thing.
Hendon Hooker is worse than a fry. He's a stale French fry. He ain't gonna get Shedeur Sanders for it. So
here's my thing, though, right? It's not so much the trade, right? And it's not so much the people included in the trade. I thought this was an interesting rumor, because I think this could lead to a little bit of a different conversation. Yes. Because when you break this down, Hendon Hooker looks like it's a wasted pick at this point.
Yeah.
3rd round pick. It looked like you set it on fire. Does not look like he's going to work out at the NFL level. You'll be lucky if he is your 3rd string quarterback. So right now, obviously, if Jared Goff goes down, panic at Hockey Town for sure, because the Lions are going to be struggling with Hendon Hooker as your QB. I thought it was interesting that you'd be giving up a 5th and Hendon Hooker to the Browns for Shedeur Sanders, who was a 5th round pick, was a guy that you could have took if you felt there was value there. The thing is, when you look at the Browns and you look at their QB depth chart, I don't want Shedeur Sanders. Right. I didn't want Shedeur Sanders coming out of the draft. I didn't want them to draft him at all. There is a quarterback there that I feel does have some value, and there is a quarterback there who could be cut. And that's Joe Flacco.
Yep.
I feel like Joe Flacco is the Browns quarterback that I most want.
Yep.
Because if I'm looking for a guy to back up my team, this is a guy who is a veteran. This is a guy who's won a Super Bowl. Yes, he's at the back end of his career if it's not already over, but he's a guy who can come in that room. And like I said before, he's a guy who might see something or know something a little bit different than Jared Goff and might be able to give him a little bit of insight for a game and allow them to game plan with some of his experience and some of his knowledge. Hendon Hooker, I'm done with. Like, put him on a boat, send him somewhere. Shedeur Sanders, put him in a box and bury that box 6 feet underneath the earth. I don't want him either. The thing was, I thought it was an interesting topic because there's another quarterback on that Browns team that I'd much rather have than Shedeur Sanders.
Yeah, and here's what's funny is that, okay, so now people floated, they talk about it, and they go, okay, I did talk about Shedeur Sanders potentially being a target that the Lions should look at, and I even also did an opinion piece, and I said, after the first OTAs, I said, hell, let's just cut Hendon Hooker and Kyle Allen. I wouldn't, back in 2022, Brad Holmes.
You were way ahead of the curve on you were out in front of everybody.
Yeah, I just said, cut them both. Just like people said. So I get the content ideas, and it's great. But just remember, proposed, possible, suggested, Lions urged to, that's just all meaning, hey, we're throwing it out there. The word that you want to look at that's professional, that indicates more serious action is the word report. Okay, if you see report in the first word, report, Lions are interested in Shedeur Sanders, that means someone is saying that it's going to happen. So that it's just simple. There's speculation, rumor season, and there's is it likely to happen. Right now we're in the what about happen. And I love the what about. Adam and I have been doing what about for 15 years. What about this idea? What about that idea? But when it gets printed, people just misconstrue it like, oh, it's going to happen. I was shocked that the radio station was like, what is this about? I'm confused. Like they don't know, like they don't understand sports media anymore. It's simple. One person floated it from heavy, a really weaker area. They floated it, and 15 people picked it up.
Not one that you should go to take factual information. It's more of a
right.
I don't want to say blog site, but it is more of a
it's just
they like to deal in rumor and innuendo.
Dude, you could run a site just based off of transactions. Lions urge to. There's literally sites that just their whole content plan is Lions urge to get Trey Hendrickson. Lions urge to sign this. Lions urge to do that. The Sporting News is basically. I used to listen to Sporting News Radio. Their website is garbage in that's all they're doing is Lions urge to sign this guy. There's value in that. Some people will think that's real, but in the end, you have to mix in real news to kind of offset some of the speculation. But the reason is, and the reason why I love it is that people want to talk about it. So I don't dismiss it. The journalists hate that stuff, and they detest it. They hate it. I love it because it is interesting conversation in that I would have considered drafting Shedeur Sanders and develop him and go next. But it didn't happen. He went to the Browns, and that's fine. He'll do his thing. I would love the smoke, and of course, I'm team entertainment and maybe a chance with the Doc and Deion Sanders, and let's see who's got the bigger ego. If Deion wants to make another music video, I'd love to star in it, and I'd love to rock some shades and hang out with Neon Deion. We could have some fun conversations. But in the end, I just want people to realize it's just speculation. It's part of the deal, but don't look at it as fact until you see insider reports or reported or there's consideration or talks happening. Other than that, it's all just gibberish.
It's usually best to double confirm too. So if you can find two sources or two sites that say the same thing or similar things, use that.
It's just whataboutism. It's just what if. And so remember too that you can always message at Detroit Podcast, message at him. He'll get you the answers that you need clearly and factually. But I'm surprised people don't understand. Like we've said it 1,000 times that this stuff is easy to read and understand. Proposed idea, her bold idea. Oh my gosh. The best part is when I do those, cuz I do three players that could get cut. Sports Illustrated writer says defensive end's getting cut. That's not what I said. I said could get cut. I said could be on the block. But that's what they did, and they had me in some conversations where luckily the company had to support me and say, if someone's doing that to John, that's not authentic. He's not reporting it. He's speculating as he does and puts it properly in the tone. But I'll say this. I respect your idea that Hendon Hooker's he's one of the guys going into training camp that needs to have a big, big month. He's got to turn things around because, everybody noticed it wasn't that great, and the backup quarterback spot is a position and an area of need. So the Lions heading into the offseason, it's just about now resting, recouping, 5-6 weeks off, get back to training camp late July, and then you get the Hall of Fame game July 31st. So you get an early look at the Detroit Lions, at least on the field. in a game where probably Hendon Hooker, Broderick Martin, Gio Manu, Sione Vaki, a lot of young guys, hopefully a couple rookies get a chance to kind of go out there and at least in the third, fourth quarter have a chance to go out and compete. Interesting times, but remember, be an educated reader. And listen, if you're confused, you still don't understand what you're reading, you're just a headline reader and
just reach out.
Message us. We're here to set the record straight. Adam and I understand facts and understand entertainment and blend it just ever so perfectly. Now, this one was interesting, entertaining, and has a small chance to be relevant and possible. I don't see it happening because Kevin Durant is older, and I do think the Suns want to have an opportunity to gain something from having him, but I would not be willing to give up 3-4 players and a draft pick for a guy who's 36 years old, who only can really maximum in terms of what you maximally can get is 60 games out of him in a regular season. He's had a lot of injuries. I love that he loves Cade Cunningham. That's great, but the cost is too much. And for whatever reason, there's just some weird aura that has followed Kevin Durant. Maybe it's because he's a guy that has glammed onto teams and won championships in a way that's difficult or different. Maybe it's the fact that he uses burner accounts to kind of defend himself, which he openly got caught not once, not twice, not 3 times maybe. But like, okay, if you're going to use a burner account, you got to be a little bit more discreet and not identify yourself so that the whole internet world can find out you're using burners. And then admit it. Oh, my goodness. But in my mind, giving up Tobias Harris, Jaden Ivey, Ron Holland, and a first-round pick for a guy still averaging 27 points, but I think you can potentially get that level of productivity from Jaden Ivey and Tobias Harris and one more vet that you can add. I think you go with the development plan for the Pistons. There is a quick fix by getting a splash, but I would go with a guy that's a little bit more young, a little bit more hungry, and also, like, this is a Brad Holmes guy. This is a guy that you need to get on the cheap, not to invest 3 players and maybe even have to give up Isaiah Stewart in the mix too. So I'm a firm no. I think it's fun to throw that out there, but I think that they would entertain at least looking at it, the mix of how that would space out with Cade Cunningham and the likes of with a Beasley, but because sell me on the idea of Kevin Durant, because I'm right now firm no, lock the door, throw away the key. I can't be entertained with this idea. I think it's crazy.
All right, so if you want me to sell you on it, this is how I'll sell you on it. He's a veteran. He's a guy who still commands respect in the league. This is a guy who supposedly you're looking for that will help transform your lineup. He's a tall, stretch, 4, can play the 3. He's a guy who can knock down 3-pointers. He kind of opens up the floor. Again, a guy who's very high on Cade Cunningham and a guy who can still, when he is playing, produce at a very high level. What'd you say, 27 points? And I think he averages something like 5 to 8 rebounds a game. And he will sit there and contribute on assists too. Plays a little bit of defense. So he's a guy who you could slot in and fit into your lineup. And like I said, comes with that veteran leadership, comes with the ability and know-how of winning a championship because he's done it. On top of it, he's a name, so he's going to put butts in the seat. I give you all of that to tell you this. I don't want that guy anywhere near this team. That MFer is a cancer. So unless you like carcinogens on your team that are devouring them from the inside out and ruining everything good that you have, I don't see the point in you having him. I don't know why you would ever do this. This guy is on the back end of his career, downside for sure. On top of that, like I said, every place he's gone over the last couple of years, he's not been a winner. Those teams have tanked. The Phoenix Suns, I think, have like 3 all-star players, and they couldn't even get to the playoffs. Why the hell would you bring this guy in? There's no point. It's absolutely stupid. Do not do it. I just put it on here because I thought it was absolutely ridiculous. I do not want to see Kevin Durant in a Pistons jersey. I think that would be absolutely awful.
Yeah, it'd be wild, right? But it goes to show you, what move would they make that's realistic? Do you see them going for a star, or do you say build, and stick with what you got, and go into year 2 with the core and see what you got in terms of another year of development?
So this is kind of how I look at it, right? You look at what's available in free agency. There's not a lot of guys who you're like, yeah, go get that guy. It's going to help out. It's going to instantly put this team over the top. So unless you're willing to make a trade for somebody, that means you're going to have to break up parts of your core that you've got here. Unless you're willing to do that, you're going to just have to run it back. Now, all that being said, if you're looking for a guy that you don't necessarily have to give up a ton for, and a guy who Trajan Langdon has a little bit of familiarity with, you can look at Zion Williamson. Looks like he's gotten himself in good shape. I understand there's a lot of baggage there. There's a lot there. This is a guy who does not play a full 82-game season. This is a guy who has issues with his DMs and porn stars. This is a guy who regularly seems like he's a bit of a malcontent. Like I said, you're gonna really have to trust Trajan Langdon on having a good feel on that player. But that's a guy who I feel like you could get for really next to nothing. After that, we're talking about really breaking things up and moving things around to go get a guy to help you out on your team. So it depends on where you want to go and what you want to do. You know, like how far are you willing to really go? How close do you think the Detroit Pistons are to winning a championship? I think that's what you've got to figure out first. I don't know if the Pistons are one player away from winning a championship. I think the Pistons are a guy away from being in contention to play in a finals, which means they'll get to that Eastern Conference final game. And at that point, it's probably a coin flip. You know, like I felt like the Pistons matched up well against Indiana, but you're seeing what Halliburton is. Halliburton, I feel like, is a budding superstar, and I don't know if Cade is necessarily there. And then you kind of look at the pieces that are around Cade. I think you need another guy or two, really and truly. I don't think one guy is going to help get you over the top and help separate you. So I'm not opposed to trading for a guy if you can get them here on a bit of a longer term contract. So then you can go and find that additional piece to really help put you over the top. I still feel like they're maybe two pieces away from actually winning a championship. So I'm not really willing to go out there and make these big grandiose trades to get anybody here.
Makes sense. And then real fast, did Florida gain attraction, gain a foothold on that series? They're clearly the best squad. They're a good team. They're hungry. I thought that their first home game really set the tone. I think they're on a pathway to potentially. I think that both OKC and Florida might be on the pathway to win some championships.
Here's the thing. I love the way Florida plays. Like Florida plays hockey the way I wish the Red Wings would play hockey. They're a team that gets good goaltending. Like Bobrovsky at this point in his career, he's an older guy. He's able to steal you a game here or there, but he needs defense in front of him. And they get really good production, and they play really solid defense. Like they make you earn everything as you enter the zone. And they really, really, from the defensive side, they really try to take control and they really try to lean on you, which then helps the forwards when they get into the offensive zone, they have a little bit of space to work, and they've got guys. Their top 6 guys are deadly. And then you go to their bottom 6 guys, and they've got dudes who can score and guys who really just play their role. They don't have to go out there and do too much. If you are a 4th-line center or a 4th-line winger on that team, the expectation is for you to go out there and just play smart hockey. Don't turn it over and don't cost your team. That's it. That's it. You get a chance, there's going to be an opening. You get a chance, try to score. And then we'll just kind of go from there. They play really, really intelligent, smart hockey. And I feel like they are built so incredibly well from every aspect of that team, right down to coaching. I think they are the ideal franchise. Again, this is a team that won the Stanley Cup last year, and this is a team that I think going into the playoffs, they were 3rd in. What are they playing? The Atlantic now, or is it the Central? I don't know. The way the divisions are all kind of whatever. But like this was a team that was kind of slipping into the playoffs. And you see what happens when the lights shine the brightest. This is a team that can turn it on, and a team that plays so incredibly heavy and plays so well. And they do such a good job of agitating and aggravating, but not crossing the line where it's something dirty. They just play hard-nosed hockey. I love watching it. Look, I think Edmonton is a fantastic team. I wanted Florida to win this series from go, but I have my own reasons for that. I think Edmonton is incredibly talented, and you've got arguably two of the top 5 forwards in the league. Connor McDavid is number 1, Leon Draisaitl probably number 3 or 4. After that, I kind of feel like the team, there's a bit of a dip, and I feel like they need guys to kind of balance out some of that talent. And it's hard to do that when you've got those two guys taking up as much of the salary cap as they do. But those guys are money players. And you've seen it in the first game. The whole reason they won in that overtime was because McDavid set up Draisaitl. The problem is you start to take those guys out, or you start to wear on those guys, or those guys, obviously, they're hockey players, probably dealing with some nagging injuries. You kind of put a little hitch in their giddy up, and it's just not the same team. I feel like you can take a guy out of Florida's lineup, and there's just another guy who kind of steps up because the talent is so evenly distributed and they're so well balanced across the board. So I do think Florida has the foothold. I think they have, I don't want to say it's a stranglehold, but I do think they have the foothold, and I think it's going to be tough for Edmonton. I know as we're recording this, series is 2-1 Florida. I think Florida leans on them a little bit more. But don't be surprised if it goes 7, but I think Florida in the end will be hoisting the Stanley Cup once again.
Mm-hmm. And it's a shame. You hate to see it for Canada, but could be heartbreak on the horizon. But Connor McDavid and Draisaitl got to take over. They got to be the best players. If they're not, they're going to lose. Quite the simple fact. If the two best players offensively don't pick it up and don't get to where they need to go, it could be a quick series. Same thing with the Pacers. You realize, okay, OKC's a better team. You got to capitalize on mistakes, and you can't let SGA just take over the whole series, because in the end, you could get run out. It could be your only win. Could be the heroic shot that Halliburton made. And just for Pistons fans, as a reminder, you had Killian Hayes, and you could have had Tyrese Halliburton, and spare me the nonsense. My PSA is, spare me if your argument is, well, we wouldn't have had Cade Cunningham. Tyrese Halliburton is better than Cade Cunningham. You could have built a team around Tyrese Halliburton if a general manager knew how to select. That was one of the first things we said was, oh, man, they're going to regret drafting Killian Hayes. The first pick that the new general manager of the Pistons made back then was Killian Hayes, and everybody was like, oh, you messed up. And everybody said, Tyrese Halliburton, you're going to get a major, major punishment for missing out on him, and he's turned out to be all-world. He turned out to be that guy. Now, Cade can rise up close to that, but can he be what Tyrese is? I hope he can. I hope he can get close to that, where when it's crunch time, he's not passing the ball off to someone else, and he's taking the shot and making it. He had a chance for a game winner, and what happened? Clanged it. And Tyrese is now at that level where he's a killer. So just a reminder, friendly reminder, you could have had Tyrese Halliburton here in Detroit. Make sure you follow Adam on Twitter at AdamRSCROZ. Follow us at Detroit Podcast. Steve, thank you so much, but hurry up, catch up. And don't just listen to us when you're bored. Listen to us every week, because you need to be in the know. You need to enjoy the 60 minutes. Don't be 5. You're a month behind, bro. Come on, catch up. We had a lot of good conversations in the last episode. I said 6:14. I'm like, Michigan. We haven't talked about Michigan damn near a month. But that was good to hear. Good to hear his reaction. If you feel anything about anything that you've heard, message. We're one of the most interactive podcasts in Metro Detroit. Because I can't wait for next Wednesday when we fire it up again for the next episode of Doc and Jock on the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
You fucking podcasters. I said don't let them in here.